The night of the gala arrived. The venue was a historic building in London, lit up with soft golden lights. Guests arrived in formal attire. Photographers lined the red carpet, and when Kate stepped out of the car, the crowd erupted in cheers. She smiled. That warm, genuine smile that had won over millions. William walked beside her, his hand on her back. They looked like the future of the monarchy. Strong, united, unshakable. Kate's tiara caught the light as she moved. It wasn't the most dramatic piece in the collection, but it didn't need to be. Its presence alone spoke volumes. She was back. She had reclaimed what was rightfully hers, and she had done it with class. Inside the gala, Kate gave a speech about mental health and the importance of supporting children through difficult times. Her words were heartfelt. Her delivery was flawless, and when she finished, the room erupted in applause. But it wasn't just applause for her speech. It was applause for her. For her strength, for her resilience, for everything she represented. The press coverage the next day was overwhelmingly positive. Headlines praised Kate's elegance. Opinion pieces talked about her quiet power. Even royal commentators who had been critical in the past admitted that she had handled the situation brilliantly. Camilla, meanwhile, had stayed out of the public eye since the banquet. She attended a few private functions, but avoided major events. Palace insiders said she was regrouping. Some said she was embarrassed. Others said she was planning her next move. But the truth was simpler than that. Camilla had realized she had underestimated Kate. She had thought Kate would bend. She had thought Kate would stay quiet the way she always had before. But Kate had changed. Or maybe she hadn't changed at all. Maybe she had always been this strong, and it had just taken the right moment for the world to see it. The royal guards who had witnessed everything from their posts along the palace halls had their own thoughts. Thomas, the guard who had served for 15 years, spoke quietly to a colleague one evening as they stood watch. "I've seen a lot in this job," he said. "I've seen fights. I've seen power struggles. But I've never seen anything like what the Princess of Wales just did." His colleague nodded. She didn't raise her voice. Didn't cause a scene. Just stood her ground. "That's the thing," Thomas said. "She didn't need to cause a scene. She just needed to be herself. And that was enough." The two guards fell silent, watching the empty hallway. Somewhere in the palace, life went on. Meetings were held. Dinners were planned. The monarchy continued, as it always had. But something had shifted. A new dynamic had been established. Kate was no longer just the dutiful daughter-in-law who followed every rule without question. She was a force in her own right, a woman who knew her worth and wouldn't let anyone diminish it. And everyone from the king down to the guards at the doors knew it. The tiara ban had been meant to put Kate in her place. Instead, it had elevated her. It had shown the world that she wasn't someone who could be controlled or silenced. She was a future queen, and she was ready for whatever came next. Asterisk, in the weeks that followed, life at the palace returned to a careful rhythm. Public events continued. Royal duties were carried out. On the surface, everything looked normal. But beneath it all, the relationships had changed. Camilla and Kate were never openly hostile. They appeared together at family functions. They stood side by side at public ceremonies. They played their roles perfectly. But there was a distance now, a coldness. Everyone who saw them together could feel it. Charles tried to bridge the gap. He organized family dinners. He encouraged private conversations. But some wounds don't heal quickly, and some lessons, once learned, can't be forgotten. Kate had learned that she couldn't rely on silence to protect her, that sometimes standing up for yourself meant risking everything, and that the people who truly respected you would stand with you. Not against you. Camilla had learned that power comes in many forms, that titles and tiaras don't guarantee authority, and that underestimating someone because they're kind is a dangerous mistake. The public, of course, had their own interpretation of events. Some saw Kate as a victim who had finally fought back. Others saw her as calculated and strategic. A few even blamed her for stirring up drama, but most people simply admired her. They admired her grace under pressure. They admired her refusal to be treated as less than she was. and they admired the quiet strength she had shown when everyone expected her to crumble. William watched his wife with a new sense of awe. He had always known she was strong, but seeing her stand up to his stepmother, to the institution itself, had shown him something deeper. Kate wasn't just strong for herself. She was strong for their family, for their children, for the future. One evening, after the children were in bed, William and Kate sat together in their private sitting room. The fire crackled softly. The house was quiet. "Do you think it's really over?" William asked. Kate looked at him. "No, but it's different now. She knows I won't back down." William nodded. "I'm proud of you. You know that, right?" Kate smiled. A real smile, soft and tired. "I know. But I didn't do it for pride. I did it because I had to." Still, William said, "You handled it perfectly. Better than I would have." Kate laughed quietly. "You would have called her out immediately." "Probably," William admitted. "But you were smarter. You let your actions speak." He sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Then William added, "My mother would have been proud too." Kate's expression softened. She thought of Diana, of the brooch, of the legacy she carried every day, whether she wore it or not. "I hope so." Back at Buckingham Palace, Camilla sat in her private study. The room was dimly lit. A glass of wine sat untouched on the table beside her. She stared at the wall, lost in thought. She had wanted to assert her authority. She had wanted to remind everyone that she was queen consort. But instead, she had given Kate a platform to shine even brighter. And now, Camilla was the one left in the shadows. Gregory, her advisor, had warned her. He had told her the tiara ban would backfire, but she hadn't listened. She had been too focused on winning a battle that didn't need to be fought. Now she was left to manage the consequences. The whispers, the comparisons, the endless articles praising Kate and questioning Camilla's judgment. It wasn't fair. She had worked so hard to earn her place in this family. She had endured decades of public criticism. She had waited patiently for her role. And just when she finally had it, Kate was still the one everyone loved. But deep down, Camilla knew the truth. The public didn't love Kate because of tiaras or titles. They loved her because she was real. She was kind. She was someone they could relate to. And that was something Camilla could never take away. The royal guards, ever watchful, continued their duties. They saw everything. The tension. The forced smiles. The moments when Kate and Camilla passed each other in hallways without speaking. Thomas, the senior guard, would later tell his family about this period in royal history. He would describe it as the moment when the balance of power shifted, when the future of the monarchy became clearer, when everyone realized that Kate wasn't just a princess by marriage. She was a leader in her own right, in the tiara ban. It would go down as one of the greatest miscalculations in modern royal history. A moment when someone tried to diminish a rising star and ended up making her shine brighter than ever. Months later, at a state event, Kate wore the lover's not tiara, the same one Diana had worn, the same one she had been banned from wearing. But this time, she wore it with a new confidence, a new understanding of her place in the world. Camilla was there too, in her own grand tiara. They stood together for the official photograph, both smiling, both playing their parts. But if you looked closely at that photo, you could see it. The difference in their eyes? Kate's were calm, clear, certain. Camilla's were guarded, careful, resigned. The battle was over. And everyone knew who had won. Not because of crowns or jewels or titles, but because of something far more powerful. Dignity, strength, and the courage to stand up for herself when it mattered most. And that was a lesson the entire palace would never forget. William stayed close to Kate all night. His hand rested lightly on her back as they moved through the crowd. He was proud of her, but he was also protective. He knew this wasn't over. His stepmother had made a move and Kate had responded. Now the real battle would begin. At one point in the evening, Kate and Camilla found themselves near each other at the drinks table. The moment was brief. Neither woman spoke, but their eyes met. It was only for a second, but in that second, Everything was said. Camilla's expression was hard, defensive. She had underestimated Kate, and she knew it. Kate's expression was calm, unshaken. She wasn't going to apologize for standing her ground. Then Kate turned away, champagne glass in hand, rejoined a group of guests who were laughing at something William had said. Camilla watched her go, and for the first time that night, she felt something she hadn't expected. Doubt by the time the banquet ended. The story had already begun to spread, not officially, not through palace statements, but through whispers, through photographs, through the eyes of everyone who had been in that room. The next morning, the press exploded. Headlines appeared across every major outlet. Photos of Kate wearing Diana's brooch were everywhere. Some articles praised her. Others questioned the tension between her and Camilla. Royal commentators debated what the brooch symbolized. Was it defiance? Was it tribute? Was it strategy? The truth was, it was all three. Kate had sent a message to Camilla. To the palace and to the world, she would not be erased. She would not be diminished, and she would not be silenced. But inside the palace, things were escalating. Camilla was furious. She called an emergency meeting with her senior staff. She wanted answers. She wanted control. And most of all, she wanted Kate to fall in line. "She wore that brooch to humiliate me," Camilla said, pacing her office. Her voice was sharp. Her hands gestured wildly. Diana's brooch. At my event, she knew exactly what she was doing. Her advisor, a calm man named Gregory, sat with his hands folded. "With respect, Your Majesty, the Princess of Wales has every right to wear items from her personal collection." "It was calculated," Camilla snapped. "It was meant to undermine me." Gregory didn't argue. He didn't need to, because Camilla was right. It had been calculated, and it had worked. The tiara ban had backfired. Instead of diminishing Kate, it had made her more sympathetic, more powerful, more beloved, and Camilla was now the one facing criticism. That afternoon, palace insiders began leaking information to the press. Anonymous sources claimed there had been tension between Camilla and Kate for months. Some said Camilla resented Kate's popularity. Others said Kate had refused to bow to Camilla's authority. The palace issued a brief statement denying any rift. But no one believed it, and then, just when everyone thought the drama had peaked, something else happened. Something that shocked even the most seasoned. Royal Watchers. Kate requested a private meeting with King Charles. The meeting was set for the following afternoon. No advisors. No staff. Just Kate and the king. The request alone had caused a stir. Kate rarely asked for private audiences with Charles. She operated through William, through protocol, through the proper channels. But this time, she went directly to the top. Charles agreed immediately. He knew the situation had spiraled. He knew his wife had overstepped. And though he loved Camilla, he also understood that Kate was the future of the monarchy. She was adored by the public. She was the mother of the future king, and she had just reminded the world that she could not be pushed aside. The meeting took place in Charles's private study at Clarence House. The room smelled of old books and wood polish. Heavy curtains blocked out the afternoon sun. It felt like a room where serious decisions were made. Kate arrived on time. She wore a simple navy dress. No jewelry except her wedding ring. Her hair was pulled back. She looked composed, but Charles could see the fire behind her eyes. "Kate," he said, gesturing to a chair. "Please, sit." She sat, her hands folded in her lap, her posture perfect. Charles poured tea, even though neither of them would drink it. It was something to do with his hands, a way to delay the conversation he knew was coming. "Right. I assume you know why I'm here," Kate said. Her voice was polite but firm. Charles nodded slowly. "The tiara ban." "Yes." There was a pause. Charles set down the teapot and sat across from her. He looked tired. Older than he had just months ago. Being king had aged him. "Camilla made that decision without consulting me," he said. "I only learned of it after the letter was sent." Kate didn't react. She had suspected as much. Camilla had acted alone, hoping Charles would support her after the fact. It was a gamble, and it had failed. "I'm not here to ask for an apology," Kate said. "I'm here to make something clear." Charles raised an eyebrow. "Go on." Kate leaned forward slightly. Her voice stayed calm, but there was steel in it now. "I have spent over a decade serving this family. I have followed every rule. I have endured every criticism. I have smiled through every insult. And I have done it all because I believe in the institution we represent." Charles nodded. "And you have done so with grace. But I will not be disrespected," Kate continued. "Not by anyone. Not publicly. Not privately. And certainly not by someone who should understand what it means to be underestimated." The reference to Camilla was subtle but unmistakable. Camilla had been an outsider once. She had been criticized, judged, rejected. She had fought for years to earn her place in the royal family. And now she was doing to Kate exactly what had been done to her. Charles sighed. He knew Kate was right. He also knew the situation was dangerous. If the rift between Camilla and Kate became public, it could damage the monarchy. The press would have a field day. The public would take sides. And the family would fracture. "What do you want?" Charles asked quietly. Kate met his eyes. "I want the ban lifted. Immediately. And I want it made clear that decisions about royal protocol are not made unilaterally by anyone, including your wife." Charles hesitated. What Kate was asking for was reasonable. But it also meant confronting Camilla. It meant overruling her. And he knew how she would react. "I'll speak with her," Charles said finally. "Good," Kate said. She stood, smoothing her dress. The meeting was over. She had said what she needed to say. But before she left, she turned back. "Your Majesty, I respect you. I respect this family. But I will not be treated as less than I am. Not by Camilla. Not by anyone." Charles watched her leave. The door closed softly behind her. He sat alone in the study, staring at the untouched tea. He had always known Kate was strong. But today, he realized just how strong. She wasn't asking for permission. She wasn't begging for mercy. She was drawing a line. And she was daring anyone to cross it. Later that evening, Charles met with Camilla. The conversation did not go well. Camilla argued that Kate was overstepping. She insisted the tiara ban was about maintaining hierarchy. She claimed Kate was trying to undermine her authority. But Charles stood firm. For the first time since becoming king, he sided against his wife. He told her the ban would be lifted. He told her that future decisions would go through him. And he told her that Kate was not the enemy. Camilla was furious. She left the room without another word. The door slammed behind her. Charles sat alone again, rubbing his temples. He had just made a choice. A choice that favored his daughter-in-law over his wife. A choice that might cost him peace in his own home, but it was the right choice. And deep down, he knew it. The next day, a quiet memo was sent to senior palace staff. The tiara ban was rescinded. No official announcement was made. No press statement was issued. But the people who mattered knew. Kate had one. Asterix's word of the lifted ban spread quickly through the palace. Staff whispered about it in hallways. Advisors exchanged knowing glances during meetings. Everyone understood what had really happened. Kate had stood her ground. Charles had backed her. And Camilla had lost. But the public still didn't know the full story. They had seen Kate's powerful statement at the banquet. They had seen the headlines. But the palace had remained officially silent about the internal conflict. That was about to change. 3 days after the ban was lifted, Kate had another public appearance scheduled. A charity gala for children's mental health. It was one of her patronages, something she deeply cared about. The event had been planned for months, long before the tiara drama began. But now, it carried extra weight. Kate's team prepared carefully. They knew the world would be watching. They knew this appearance would send a message about how Kate was moving forward. And they knew it needed to be perfect. The gown was chosen. Soft rose pink. Elegant and warm. The kind of dress that reminded people why they loved Kate. Not because she was flashy or dramatic, but because she was genuine. And on her head, Kate would wear a tiara. Not one of the grand, heavy pieces from the royal vault. Something smaller, more personal. The lotus flower tiara, which had been a favorite of Princess Margaret. It was delicate, beautiful, and meaningful. Kate was making another statement. She could have chosen the biggest, most dramatic tiara to prove a point. But instead, she chose grace. She chose dignity. And in doing so, she showed everyone that she had never needed to fight dirty to win. The hallways of Buckingham Palace were silent that morning. Too silent. Staff moved with their heads down, exchanging nervous glances but saying nothing. Something had happened. Something no one dared to speak about out loud. In the Queen Consort's private chambers, Camilla stood at the window. Her hands were folded behind her back. Her face was calm, but her jaw was tight. She had just made a decision that would shake the entire royal family. A decision that targeted one person in particular, Kate Middleton. The message had been sent an hour ago. A formal letter, short, cold, direct. It informed the Princess of Wales. She was no longer permitted to wear any royal tiaras at upcoming state events. No explanation. No discussion. Just a ban. Outside the palace gates, the world had no idea what was brewing inside those ancient walls. But inside, everyone knew. The staff, the advisors, the guards who stood at attention in every hallway. They all knew this was personal, and they all wondered the same thing. How would Kate respond? If you want to see what happens next in this shocking royal story, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications. You won't believe what unfolds. The tiara ban was unprecedented. For generations, royal tiaras had been worn by senior female members of the family at state banquets, diplomatic receptions, and ceremonial events. They were symbols of status, history, and belonging. To be banned from wearing one was not just an insult. It was a statement. Kate had worn some of the most famous tiaras in royal history. The lover's knot, the lotus flower. Each appearance had been elegant, poised, perfect. The public adored her. The press called her graceful. Even the late Queen Elizabeth had trusted her with pieces from the royal vault. But now, Camilla had drawn a line. Some said it was jealousy. Others whispered it was strategy. Camilla was queen consort now, and she wanted to remind everyone who held the power. She had waited decades for this role, and she was not going to let anyone overshadow her, not even the beloved Princess of Wales. The letter sat on Kate's desk in Kensington Palace. She had read it twice. Her face showed nothing. No anger, no tears, just focus. William had seen the letter too. His reaction was immediate. His face flushed. His fists clenched. He wanted to call his father. He wanted to march to Buckingham Palace and demand an explanation. But Kate placed a hand on his arm. "Not yet," she said quietly. "Let me handle this." William looked at her, confused. "Handle it? She's trying to humiliate you." Kate's eyes didn't waver. "I know." She stood and walked to the window, looking out at the gardens. The same gardens where her children played. The same grounds where she had tried for over a decade. To honor the royal family with dignity and grace, she had always followed the rules, always stayed silent when attacked, always smiled through the pain. But this time felt different. This time, Camilla had crossed a line, and what Kate did next would stun everyone who thought they knew her. The royal guards had been stationed outside the private wing for years. They had seen arguments. They had heard raised voices behind closed doors. But they had never seen anything like what was about to happen, because Kate wasn't going to fight back with words. She was going to fight back with something far more. Hourful, asterisk the following morning, Kensington Palace was unusually busy. Cars arrived early. Staff members carried garment bags and boxes with unusual care. The head of Kate's team had been called in before dawn. Something was being planned, but no one outside the inner circle knew what Kate sat at her desk, pen in hand. She was writing responses to the week's correspondence. Her posture was perfect, her expression unreadable. To anyone watching, she looked entirely unbothered by the tiara ban. But her team knew better. They had worked with her long enough to recognize the signs. The way she held her pen, just a little tighter. The way her responses were shorter, sharper. Kate wasn't angry. She was focused. And when Kate was focused, she was unstoppable. "Your Highness," her private secretary said, stepping into the room, "the seamstress has arrived, and the jeweler is here as well." Kate looked up. "Good. Send them in." Within minutes, the room transformed into a planning hub. Fabrics were spread across tables. Sketches were reviewed. A jewelry case was opened, revealing pieces that hadn't been worn in years. These weren't royal tiaras. They were Kate's personal collection. Gifts, heirlooms from her own family. Items that didn't belong to the crown. And that was the point. If Camilla wanted to ban her from wearing royal tiaras, fine. Kate would wear something else. Something that couldn't be controlled or taken away. Something that would send a message louder than any tiara ever could. The first event after the ban was a state banquet. It was being held in 3 days. The guest list included foreign dignitaries, ambassadors, and members of parliament. Camilla would be there, of course, as would King Charles, and the world's media would be watching. Kate's stylist held up a stunning gown. Deep sapphire blue, elegant but bold. It was a color Kate rarely wore, but tonight it felt right. Strong, regal, unapologetic, and for the hair. The stylist asked. Tate smiled. Not her usual polite smile. This one had an edge. "We'll do something different." Back at Buckingham Palace, Camilla's staff were preparing her for the same event. Her gown had been selected weeks ago. Cream and gold, classic, queenly, and on her head, she would wear the grandest tiara in the collection. The one that had once belonged to Queen Mary. It was a statement. Peace. Heavy. Glittering. Impossible to ignore. Camilla wanted to make sure. Everyone knew who was in charge, but what she didn't know was that Kate had no intention of competing with. Jewels. The night of the banquet arrived. Cars lined up outside Buckingham Palace. Photographers stood ready behind barriers. Security was tight. The event had been planned for months, but now it carried extra weight. Everyone in royal circles had heard whispers about the tiara ban. Tonight, people weren't just watching for diplomacy. They were watching for drama. Camilla arrived first. She stepped out of the car with confidence. Her tiara caught every camera flash. Her expression was composed, almost smug. She had one, or so she thought. King Charles walked beside her, unaware of the tension brewing. He smiled and waved. This was supposed to be a night of unity and tradition. Inside the palace, guests began to arrive. Champagne was poured. Conversations filled the grand hall. And then, the royal protocol officer made an announcement. Their Royal Highnesses, the Prince and Princess of Wales. The room quieted. All eyes turned toward the entrance. William appeared first, tall and formal in his military uniform. And then, Kate stepped into view. The entire room froze. She wore no tiara. No diamonds in her hair. No jewels from the royal vault. Instead, her hair was styled in a sleek, low bun. Simple. Powerful. And pinned at the back was a single piece. A sapphire brooch. Not just any brooch. It had belonged to Princess Diana. The room erupted in whispers. Cameras flashed. Guests leaned toward each other, shocked. Kate had just done the unthinkable. She had honored the late Princess Diana. It's an event where she had been publicly humiliated, and the message was clear. You can take away the tiaras, but you can't take away my dignity. Across the room, Camilla's face went pale. Asterisk, the banquet hall was filled with the sound of clinking glasses and polite laughter. But beneath it all was a tension so thick it could be cut with a knife. Kate moved through the room with perfect grace. She greeted ambassadors. She smiled at dignitaries. She acted as though nothing unusual had happened at all. But everyone knew. Everyone saw. The sapphire brooch glittered under the chandeliers. It was modest compared to the towering tiara on Camilla's head. Yet somehow it commanded more attention. Every camera in the room was pointed at Kate. Every whispered conversation mentioned her name. Camilla stood near the head table, her jaw clenched. She had worn the grandest tiara in the collection, and yet she had been upstaged by a single brooch. Worse, it was Diana's brooch, the people's princess, the woman whose memory still outshone them all. King Charles noticed the tension, but said nothing. He was caught between his wife and his son's wife, and he knew any comment would only make things worse. So he smiled. He played his role, and he pretended everything was fine. But the royal guards standing along the walls saw everything. One of them, a man named Thomas, had served the family for over 15 years. He had seen arguments. He had witnessed feuds. But he had never seen anything quite like this. Kate wasn't shouting. She wasn't causing a scene. She was simply existing with quiet dignity. And that was somehow more devastating than any outburst could have been. As the evening went on, guests began to approach Kate. A duchess complimented her elegance. An ambassador remarked on her poise. A senior politician told her she looked radiant. Each compliment was genuine. Each one was also a silent rejection of the tiara ban. The public didn't know the full story yet, but the people in that room did, and they were making their allegiances clear.